Okay, we're going to go ahead and kick things off this evening. We have a very special guest with us today, Sierra Romero, and I know a lot of us have been looking forward to that, all season. So she's going to be joining us also in hosting a clinic here at Capital City Baseball Kingdom on March 5th and 6th. And we'll have some hang tough coaches there assisting, but it's just fantastic to have her here in our community, working with our young ladies across the board, hang tough and the public. We're always want to be in the forefront of helping inspire and provide opportunities to young people to continue to play sports and get better at softball. So I'll give a brief introduction here. So if you aren't familiar with Sierra, she was a 4-time All-American, 2016 Player of the Year at the University of Michigan, 2016 Shut Sports and NFCA Player of the Year, 2015 ESPN Softball Player of the Year, 3-time Big Ten Player of the Year, Honda Award Cup winner, NCAA record holder in the Grand Slams with 11 Grand Slams in her career, NCAA record for career runs with 302, and first player in NCAA history to accomplish having 300 runs, 300 hits, and 300 RBIs in her career. And obviously she went on from there to be the number 2 draft pick to go to the USSSA Pride. And I know many of you are familiar. There's been a lot of new information coming out about her playing with Athletes Unlimited this year. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sierra. And you there, Sierra?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Let's make sure we turn you up. Okay.
All right, we good to go?
I think so.
All right, awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Sierra Romero. Like you said, I played softball at the University of Michigan. I currently play pro. I've been playing pro for 6 years now. This will be my 7th year. I was with the USSSA Pride, but now I am with Athletes Unlimited. So this will actually be my first year with Athletes Unlimited. And just a heads up, there may be a couple times where I have to cough. I had COVID a couple weeks ago, and I'm still having this cough that just will not go away. But yeah, so if at any point I'm having to cough, that's probably why. But one of the big things that I wanted to do for this talk, as I go through basically my experience from travel ball through high school to college and pro, if at any point you guys have questions, I know there's a Q&A at the end, but if there's something I'm talking about and maybe you want me to touch base on it a little bit more, there's a chat section on here. It should be on the bottom of your Zoom page. You'll see chat. It's like participants chat, share screen, all that. You can just write a question in there, and I have it up just in case someone writes something, and I'll try to get to it and answer any questions you have as I'm talking, just because I know that by the time I'm done, you might forget or whatever. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box and I'll answer them for you guys. But I do have a list of some stuff that I'm going to cover with y'all, but I'm excited to come out to Michigan. I love going back any chance that I get. I miss it all the time, but I'm excited to work with you guys. I hope to see all of you there. It's going to be a really good camp. Typically, all of the Michigan camps are the most fun. I don't know if it's just because the environment or I'm excited to be back in Michigan or what it is. Maybe I'm biased, but it should be really good. I plan on putting on a really good camp for y'all. But just to start off, the way that I got into playing softball was a little bit different. My dad played pro in Mexico. And so when he was in Mexico playing, I would actually go and travel and watch him play. There were times he played on teams, in the US, and I'd go watch him play there. And it was really sparked and inspired by watching him play. The first time I'd ever seen him hit a home run, I remember looking at my mom and I was like, I want to do that. And from that point on, that home run he hit that like went on the highway just kind of sparked everything for me. I was like, I want to hit home runs like him. I want to be like him. And so they immediately put me into softball. And then from there, I never really looked back. I did play other sports, but I didn't play them like competitively, like travel ball or anything like that. But I was a very outdoorsy kid. You know, I was always outside, whether I was playing volleyball, basketball, soccer, you know, all kinds of stuff. I definitely think it's important that you young athletes play multiple sports. That doesn't mean you have to go be on 20 different travel ball teams. Just be active. It helps you athletically. And I can guarantee you that any college coach you talk to would say the same thing. Typically, their best athletes play multiple sports, or they're just into a bunch of different sports. And ultimately, it helps you and helps prevent any possible future injury. So that was really my inspiration for starting. And when I did start, you know, my big thing was my dad made it very clear to me that the only way that they'd be able to support me to get to college would be paying for like travel ball and stuff like that. They were like, we won't be able to afford, you know, putting you through college. Like it's really going to be on you. And I remember sitting down and having a talk with my parents, and they were like, look, if you want to go to college, softball can be an avenue and a way to get you there. And when we talked about it, like I didn't know at the time, I didn't really know about scholarships. I didn't know about all that stuff, you know, even academic scholarships. And so they basically really put an emphasis on your academics need to be right, and you need to work really hard in softball. And if you do those things, you can get your college education paid for. And I knew that I wanted to play college ball. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. So from that point on, after that talk with my parents, I made it like my mission. I was extremely dedicated to softball. I think I did something softball related almost every single day. I can be pretty crazy when it comes to like being a perfectionist. And I don't mean that like I'm training for hours every single day. I could have just gone outside on like an off day or whatever and played catch for 30 minutes. And that was my softball for the day. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to always be some crazy practice or anything like that. Sometimes it's just getting your body moving and being athletic is what ultimately helps you. And so during travel ball in California is a bit different than most states. I mean, it's nonstop. You see around there's always something, there's always tournaments, especially in California. I can't tell you how many tournaments I went to, and there would be sometimes, I don't know, like 20 to 40 college scouts. And I mean, there was times where I actually had college scouts at my practices before for travel ball. And so this is all before a lot of the new NCAA rules came into place. So now there's rules that won't allow some of that interactions to happen. But growing up in California, which is a big hot spot for softball, it was a challenge just because, I mean, the travel ball is already super competitive, but not only that, but you just have these athletes on every single team. It could be your team too. And there's possibly, 5 or more D1 softball players. And I just remember feeling like a lot of pressure. And that's why I really like the new NCAA rule for younger athletes, just because it takes some of that pressure off of you. You don't have to have it all figured out your freshman or sophomore year of high school. You know what I mean? Now you can actually be a kid and enjoy training and being with your friends and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, like so-and-so got recruited, now I have to, or I feel behind because they got a scholarship already and I didn't. So I definitely think that rule now works in your guys' favor, because I do remember in travel ball, there was a lot of pressure on me, and I felt it. And even though sometimes I'm like, really, there's no pressure, like there was, I was getting calls, I was having conversations with coaches at a young age, and it was nerve-wracking, and I was still growing up, and I was young, like you girls. And so it's tough when you are put into those situations. But like I said, travel ball in California is extremely different. But one thing that I think should be the same throughout all of travel ball is your work ethic. I know that Michigan gets cold, the snow can kind of stop you from getting outside and everything else, but that's where you got to find those indoor facilities, or you got to try to make it work. Like when the lockdown was going on and everything else, I can't tell you guys how many defensive drills I did in my garage with a tennis ball against a wall. those all count. It all works. That's still getting good reps in. So you definitely want to make sure you're making do with what you have. And in California, one of the big things for us was nonstop training. And when I tell you guys I trained all the time, I really mean it. If you guys want to go to a good school, 100% your grades have to be there, right? Because you're a student athlete first. So you want to make sure your grades, they got to be there. It's the most important thing, because if the grades aren't there, the coach can't do anything to help you. So definitely make sure the grades are on point. But then second, it's your work ethic. It's how much work am I willing to put in to get what I want and get that end result. And so for me, I was training nonstop. I think I was traveling up to Anaheim, which was about an hour and 15 from my house. I was traveling there, I think, two times a week. And then the other days of the week, I actually had a facility closer to my home that I would go to. But the facility I would travel to throughout the week that was further away was the Batbuster facility, which is the team that I played on. And it was called STC. And I went there for hitting, fielding, weight training, and even sometimes physical therapy if I had like a little injury or some nagging pain. So to say that I took my training, recovery, and everything really seriously, I really did. And I really emphasize for you girls to just, think about what you want to get out of softball and think about all the places it can take you, because softball has taken me to a lot of really, really cool places that just, I don't know that I would have been able to go to if it wasn't for the sport. And so definitely look at what you want to get out of it and put your head down and get to work, because it really is amazing. And so during travel ball, my high school career was really fun. It was kind of like an atmosphere for me to relax a little bit. I didn't feel like I had a ton of pressure on me in high school. I got to really enjoy my friends and my teammates. And for me, that was a big plus, because travel ball it always just felt like a lot of extra pressure. And my high school team was pretty good. We won conference a few times, and I think I played with a couple girls who went D1. I played with Taylor and Tatum Edwards. Taylor Edwards actually was an alternate for the USA national team this past year at the Olympics. And who else? Her sister Tatum, and then a couple girls who went to Cal State Fullerton. So I definitely had a lot of really good athletes on my high school team. And then my senior year in high school, I got to play with Sydney, my sister. So that was really cool to have 1 year with her. But yeah, I don't even think I touched on the family part. I'll touch on the family part real quick. So those of you who don't know, my sister is Sydney Romero. She played softball at the University of Oklahoma. She was the third baseman there. She won 2 national championships while she was there. And then I have a brother. His name is Michael Romero. He is a baseball player. He is committed to LSU for baseball. And he will either go, he's a senior at Orange Lutheran, which is a private school in California. And he will either go to LSU or he may sign basically out of high school, which is just crazy for me to even think of that he could do that. He's expected to be a first round pick, possibly a high second round at the latest. So he's got a lot going on. He's a stud. And then we have a younger sister, Sophia. She's in high school right now. She hasn't made a decision on where she wants to go, but she is a lefty power hitter and slapper, mostly power hitter now, and outfielder. So she's like total opposite from me and Sydney, which I think she did on purpose because she didn't want everyone to just refer to her as Sierra and Sydney's sister. So she was like, I'm going to go be a lefty and I'm going to be an outfielder. So that way they can't compare. So her and my brother Michael are both lefties, and then Sydney and I are both righties. But there's 4 of us. I'm the oldest. And there's a 10 and 11 year gap between me, Michael, and Pia, and a 3-year gap between Sydney and I. So I've definitely grown up around baseball and softball for a long time, and it's going to be around me for a lot longer, just between my youngest sister still being in high school, junior in high school, and she's still playing. And then obviously my brother with baseball. But I definitely come from a big sports family. My dad played baseball, but then my mom also played softball in high school. But they're both very athletic, and they definitely remind me where I got my athleticism from all the time. But yeah, so that was just a little bit about my family. Let's see, one of the things on the list. Oh, this is a good one. So how did travel ball prepare me for playing at a higher level. You guys, when I say that travel ball like sets the tone, it really does. Travel ball to me is where you get to decide, and you'll figure out pretty quick, like, how elite do you want to be, right? So travel ball is a business, but it's a business that is going to help you get to that next level. And so you have to take it seriously. I know that when you're younger, it's a little bit different, but as you get older, you know, you have to kind of sit down and think like, okay, what am I going to get? What do I want to get out of this? Because travel ball can get me there. And how hard do I want to work? Because I can guarantee you that a lot of the habits you pick up in travel ball will carry over into college. And the idea is, if you can already create those good habits in travel ball, that transition to college is going to be a lot easier. It's not going to make college just a piece of cake. College is still hard. The training, the practices, the traveling, all that stuff, it's tough. Like, there's nothing really that can prepare you for all of that. However, if you're already used to putting in your time, putting in your effort, taking care of yourself, and getting your job done, both on the field and off the field with school, you are going to feel way more prepared when you get to that next level. Travel ball really gives you a little bit of a taste of that competitiveness, right? Because you're going to be playing travel ball with really good athletes that you're having to compete for a spot. And so it's a really big deal that you take it seriously, because it will help prepare you for the next level. Because I definitely think my travel ball career and playing for the Orange County Batbusters really helped prepare me for college ball, because I was already used to the competitiveness. I was already used to having to compete for a starting spot, because I was competing every single year in travel ball. I didn't just have my starting spot all the time. There were times where I switched positions. I had to learn new positions. I had to be flexible. And I think that that's important, because when you get to college, the more positions you can play, the more valuable you are, right? And so you had to really be able to put your pride aside and not think like, no, I'm a shortstop and shortstop only. No, I mean, typically shortstop specifically and second basemen are typically really athletic. So if you can play multiple spots on the field, that makes you extremely valuable to a college coach. You know, utility players are huge now, especially with COVID and everything that's happened. Some athletes didn't graduate. Some athletes decided to stay an extra year. So now there's even less money out there for athletes who are trying to go and play D1. And so when you look at it that way, you have to think, how can I make myself more valuable to them? And the way you can do that is by being a 5-tool athlete, is by, you know, being able to play maybe second, short, and center field, and also be a power hitter, have a little bit of speed. So it's like, if you're able to make yourself this all-around athlete and play multiple positions, it makes you more intriguing to them, because now they're like, okay, we don't have a lot of money because of the COVID year and how many athletes stayed. So who are we going to go after? The player who only can play one position, the one who could play 4, you know, and is athletic, and we can teach her how to do this, this, and this. So if you're coachable and you're willing to learn and try new things, you know, these college coaches are going to be really interested in you, especially because recruiting is so different now just because of COVID. And I can't emphasize that enough. I was just talking to some athletes the other day, some softball players. I went out to the tournament in Clearwater. You guys may have watched some games this past weekend on ESPN. I was at those games watching them. And I was talking to some of the athletes, and the coaches were like, it's just crazy. Some of our rosters are so big because, you know, these athletes got an extra year and some of them left, but then some of them didn't. And now we don't have as much money. You know, now we have to be careful with who we give money to and X, Y, and Z. So it's pretty crazy now with just how different it is. And I don't know at what point are they going to be able to kind of catch up and get it back to like normal, I guess. I don't know when that'll happen or if it ever will. But I know that that's one thing that college coaches are struggling with right now, because there's so many athletes, and every year there's, you know, a new set of seniors that they're recruiting or wanting to recruit, but now they have these huge rosters. So it's definitely different. But it's something that everyone is getting used to, including the college coaches. Let's see, what else do we got? So my college recruiting process, you guys, was completely different than what yours will be. And the reason I say that is because of the new NCAA rule. The new NCAA rule college coaches cannot offer you or anything like that until September 1st of your junior year. And so they're not going to be messaging you. They're not going to be emailing you. They're not going to be coming after you until September 1st of your junior year. When I was being recruited in high school, there was no rule. So I had my first offer in 8th grade, which is insane because how am I supposed to know where I want to go in 8th grade? I don't know, but they did. They offered me. I did not take it, but I was already going to college camps at the time, which is why I talked about that pressure and why I felt so much pressure on myself because, you know, I have a teammate or whatever at the time who goes and commits to Florida and she's in 8th grade. And I'm like, dang, am I behind? Like, should I already have a school? Should I already pick a school? And, you know, like I said, that pressure really got to me. I ended up verbally committing to Michigan going into my sophomore year of high school. So I was still young, but I did wait a couple years. Sydney committed her freshman year of high school to Oklahoma. And the recruiting process was just different because there were no rules. They could come after you. They didn't have to wait till a certain age, which, like I said, put that pressure on you. But at the same time, too, the recruiting process was different just because without those rules and all those tournaments going on that they have just in California alone, talk about like a pressure situation or like a World Series feel. I mean, I would be at a travel ball game sometimes, and I'm not even kidding. There'd be 15 college coaches in the stands. And like, I'm freaking out because I need to perform, right? And just all that extra added pressure that just didn't need to happen. Like, I'm really glad that you guys don't have to experience that just because it's a lot. And I think it allows you, the athlete, to develop because some people are late bloomers. Some people get really good as they get older. And I think that it helps those athletes because some athletes, they might, like me, they could have recruited me. Let's say that the team that was coming after me in 8th grade, what if I ended up not being any good 2 years later? What if I never got any better and I just stayed the same? They would have made a mistake with me. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of coaches are realizing that that happened to some of them. Like, you get these athletes and they're like, oh, they're going to be so good. And then they get to college. And because they recruited them so young at the time, they end up not doing anything in college and they end up sitting the bench. And they're like, what the heck? We got this person a full ride. Well, you recruited them in 7th or 8th grade. How do you know how they're going to develop? So this rule, I think, is really good for you guys because it allows you to grow up and learn your body and get stronger and really figure out what kind of softball player you are and what's going to make you stand out and be different. And so I definitely think it works in your favor because, trust me, you do not want to have to go through the recruiting process that, you know, my sister and I had to go through. It was just a lot. And like I said, this works in your guys' favor. But travel ball for me was every weekend. We had practices throughout the week. I had, you know, second, like a training with like a second hitting instructor that was home in California, that was closer to my house. And then I had one further in Anaheim that I would go to every other day. And so when I tell you my training was crazy and out of the norm, it 100% was. I'm not saying don't do it, but it was a lot. It's just like I went a little overboard with it sometimes because, like I said, I was a perfectionist. However, I do think throughout the week, you need to give yourself time off. You need to give yourself a chance to relax and get a break because burning out is 100% a thing. I 100% had multiple burnouts where I just was tired and, you know, my body, even in high school, felt like I was falling apart sometimes. And so I had to really take my recovery seriously. And I know you guys are probably like, oh, well, I'm young, I don't need to really worry about it. You do, because it ends up catching up with you eventually, even after a couple of years. So I definitely want to tell you guys to take care of yourself because you definitely need to. It's important. Let's see. So when I was getting recruited, I had a few visits lined up. And I remember specifically when I got asked to go on a visit to Michigan, I think I had Texas and Tennessee that I was supposed to visit next, and Arizona. But Michigan was like the first one of the big ones that I was supposed to go visit. And when I went to Michigan, I went when it was snowing, and I think it was like 10 degrees, which was just crazy because being from California, the only snow I'd ever seen was really fake snow, which was like in Big Bear, where they have like a machine that creates all the snow for you basically. And so I was definitely not used to it, but I knew I needed to see Michigan when it was cold, just so I knew I could handle it. And it was crazy because I'm pretty sure it was about like 10 degrees. And I mean, I loved it. I loved Ann Arbor. I loved just the way the buildings looked. I loved the facilities, the academics, the academic resources that they had. The school as a whole just had everything on my list that I wanted. And when you guys are going through that recruiting process, I think it's important to write down a list of what you want, because yes, you're going there for softball, but you're also going there for school, but also you're going there for the experience. And if football is really important to you, football was really important to me. I love football, and I wanted to go to a school where I was going to get to go to tailgates and go to a good football game and have a good time. Like, and Michigan had that, the big house and the team, they were good, and just the atmosphere and everything about it. So like, that was an easy one to check off my list. And then academics, that was like a no-brainer after talking to academic advisors, but also seeing just the athletic academic center they had for athletes only, and the resources you had there. I was like, okay, this is awesome. And then the coaching staff, I really clicked and gelled with the coaches right away. I asked girls on the team about the coaches, and they all had nothing but good things to say. And I paid attention to the team chemistry. I got to meet the girls on the team, even though I wasn't going to play with really hardly any of them. I think I played with only like 2 who I actually was there on the visit with. And they all gelled. They all had great team chemistry. Everything, just from the outside looking in, I was like, they have the whole package. And so for me, the only thing that was a negative on my list, so like the pros and cons, the only con I had was that it snowed. That was it. That it snowed, and it was really cold sometimes. And so when I looked at my list and I saw all these like check marks, and then I just had one thing that I didn't like, which was that it was really cold sometimes, I was like, you know what? That's fine. I can handle that. It's 4 years, maybe 5, and I'll be good to go. And so to me, it was so much more than just the weather. It was the experience, and just, it was weird. There's a feeling, if you talk to anybody who's gone and played college ball and gone through a recruiting process, there's like a feeling you get. And I don't know how to explain it other than like, you just feel at home. Like, you feel good about the place you're at. It feels like you're supposed to be there. You feel like you've even been there before, even though you haven't. And it was just a really comforting feeling. Like, I just felt like Ann Arbor to me was already home, and I was visiting for my first time, which was just kind of weird considering I was all the way from California. I definitely had never experienced a place like Ann Arbor. And so to me, they had the whole package. And I went home, and before I went home, I was there for a camp, and I did their winter softball camp, and I did not have an offer from them yet. They just asked me to come for a visit. And I had a meeting with Hutch after the camp, and she offered me a full ride, and I wanted to take it right there. And she was like, no, like, I don't want you to take it. I want you to go home, think about it, talk about it with your parents. And that was something I really respected, because leading into my visit with Michigan, I already had offers from other schools, and they hadn't even met me yet. Just based off of my playing and talking to me on the phone a few times, they offered me full rides. And I mean, that was cool. Don't get me wrong. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. They want me and all this stuff. You know, some of the schools I was supposed to visit, like Tennessee and Texas, like they had already offered me full rides. And I'm like, you guys don't even know me. And it was still cool. And I was really blessed about it. It's just that the way that Hutch went about it was different than any other coach. These coaches were already giving me offers without even really getting to know me. And to me, that was kind of weird, because I just was like, well, how do you know you're going to like me as a person and a player if you're just offering me this? We haven't really talked much and everything else. And Hutch, I asked her, because I thought it was so interesting that she waited. And I was like, I'm just curious, like what made you wait to offer me, when I was here? And she was like, why? She straight up looked at me and was like, well, I didn't know that I was going to like you. And I was like, oh, like, okay. Like, I wasn't expecting her to say that, but like, it's true. But she just straight up was like, I mean, I know you're a good softball player, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like you as a person. She was like, so, and if I don't like you as a person, like, I don't want you to join my program, because, the team chemistry and everything is really important. And it's important in sports, especially team sports. And she was like, and if you didn't gel with the team or the coaches, then it doesn't matter how good you are. Like, I don't want to bring anybody that doesn't fit our program, into Michigan. And I just really respected that. And I just remember thinking like, wow, that's awesome, because, I'm really big on getting to know people and deciding whether or not, I let them into my inner circle and etc. And so I just thought that was really cool because none of the other schools did that. And so when I went home, I talked about it with my mom. My dad had went with me on the trip. And the whole time on the way home, I was just like, Dad, I want to go to Michigan. Like, I want to go to Michigan. And he was like, okay, well, relax. Like you need to go visit the other schools still. Like, we have a couple trips lined up. And when I got home, I literally could not stop thinking about Michigan, to the point where I just was like, I do not want to go on these trips. Like, I just know what I want to do. And I want to go to Michigan, and I will call and cancel my other visits. And so I guess when you know, because I called Hutch and I just told her like, Hutch, I want to be a Wolverine and I want to accept your offer. And she just was like, are you sure? Are you sure? I think she asked me like a million times. And then she was like, I want to talk to your parents. So she talked to my mom and my dad. And, my mom was just like, after talking to Hutch, she was like, I totally understand why you love her. She is an amazing woman, an amazing coach. And, I know that she reassured my mom just with me going far away from home that like I'd have the family environment and everything and the support system there. And so it was really cool. And so I verbally committed that night. And then the next day I had to call Texas, Tennessee, Arizona. I had to call those coaches and tell them that I wasn't coming on my visit because I committed to Michigan. And those were tough calls. Definitely hard to have, but definitely had to happen. So that was basically how the whole recruiting went, and then me verbally committing and how I got to my decision. They just checked off everything on my list that I wanted. And so with you guys, I definitely think if there are certain things you want that you don't want to budge on, then like, don't budge. Have those non-negotiables. And if weather's one of them, I know that weather is a non-negotiable for some people. I have teammates who are like, I want to go somewhere really hot, or, I don't mind going to the cold. So like, I do want to go to the cold a little bit, or like everybody has their own preference. So make a list of things you want, maybe degrees you're trying to get, and look up the schools that have those degrees and fit whatever it is that you're looking for. Because remember, it's your future, it's what you want, and you're going to get the most out of it. And you want to make sure you do your research and you figure out what it is you're looking for, because there's a lot of schools, a lot of schools out there. And it's not just D1. You don't have to only go D1. I cannot emphasize that enough. I think sometimes we as athletes, like, I get it. You want to think the highest level is D1, but don't miss out on a college experience and possibly playing softball in college too. If it's D2, if it's JUCO, like, that doesn't matter. You're still going to get that same experience of the team chemistry and the travel and everything else. I mean, one of the best hitters of all time, she was at a JUCO, Crystal Bustos. She played on the USA national team. One of the best power hitters ever. She came from a JUCO. So, I mean, if that doesn't just go to show that it's not just D1, then like, I don't know what is, because she was literally on the USA national team. I think she won, I feel like she has two. I think she has a gold and silver medal. But she's just an absolute beast and extremely strong and an amazing power hitter. Furthest ball I've ever seen hit was definitely her home runs. Let's see what else. So for me, my biggest challenges going from high school to college was the time management, because like I said, travel ball definitely gets you ready when it comes to like the competitiveness and everything else. But I don't really know that there's anything to really prepare you for the time management that is going to have to happen when you get to college. I knew softball was going to be tough. I knew school was going to be tough, but I guess I didn't realize that it was literally like working a full-time job. It really was. I would wake up, I'd be in class all day. Sometimes, depending on what the schedule was like, I'd have to get a lift in with my trainer. If I had like a 2-hour break, because maybe I couldn't do it with the team before practice or after practice. So I'd have to maybe get it in sometimes, depending on what my schedule was like. And then I'd leave class, go to my lift. And then sometimes I couldn't even go back and like shower or anything. I just went straight from lift back to class again. And I'd have to pack lunches, or, I'd have to get food from someplace over by whatever class I was at. And then immediately from class, I probably had like an hour before practice started. So it was like from class, I'd go get on a bus and go straight to practice sometimes. and I'd have to hurry up, get any physical therapy done I needed, get dressed for practice, get ready, and I'd be out at the field. And it was just crazy because, once practice is done, you think like, oh, I get to go home and rest now. But sometimes you had class after practice, or sometimes well, not sometimes, you definitely had to go to study hall hours, especially if you were an underclassman. Underclassmen always had to go to study hall hours. You had to get a certain amount of hours a week in study hall. And so there were times where I'd be done at practice and like I'd shower at the field, try to get all cleaned up. And then like I'd literally take my dinner to study hall, eat, study, go to tutors, do all that. I'd go home and then I'd go to sleep and then I'd do it all over again. And so it was kind of crazy just because there were times where I just was like, dang, like I have not stopped. I haven't even had a chance to do anything for myself. Like, especially once I was out of the dorms. When you're in the dorms, it's a lot nicer because you have the cafeteria and everything else. So you don't have to worry about making your food. But when I was out of the dorms and I was actually in the house that I shared with my other teammates, I mean, talk about like really having to be self-sufficient and independent. Like there were times if I didn't cook, I didn't eat unless I got food, I picked up food or whatever. But what was nice was towards I think my senior year, or maybe halfway through junior year and senior year, they actually started providing us with like dinners every single night, which they didn't do the entire time. So I'm really curious if I would almost bet that they probably do that now, probably for all schools. But the first couple years was tough because like I'd get done with practice and I'm like, man, before study hall, I need to go home and cook. Otherwise I'm not going to eat because I didn't want to eat out all the time. Or because then that's money I'm spending. So it's definitely interesting because the time management is what really got me, because I didn't know how to manage all of that. I didn't know how to do it all and do it well. I felt like if I spent too much time in softball, school went down. If I spent too much time in school, softball went down. So I was like, man, I just need to figure out a way to balance this. And one of the things that Michigan had, which a lot of schools have, is an academic center. And we specifically had one that was for athletes only. And so they know that our schedule is crazy sometimes and it's hard for us to get in with tutors. So they have tutors that are accessible to us really in whatever class we need. We just have to go to our academic advisor for it. And so what I did was I actually signed up and asked for a mentor. And at Michigan, they had these mentors that would meet with you whenever you wanted. And so with me, I asked to meet with my mentor like every day. It was like Monday through Friday, as long as I was in town. I was like, I need to meet with her every single day. So I met with her every day. We would plan out my week and we would figure out, because in college, they'll give you like a whole syllabus of when your exams are, the dates of them, the times, everything. So you can plan it all the way down. Like, okay, I know I have an exam in 2 months or in a week, and they give it to you way ahead of time. So you can like prepare. And so we would plan it out and I'd be like, okay, I have an essay around this time, but then also we're traveling to Florida on a Thursday. So I'm going to miss my exam on Friday. So I need to reschedule this exam. So as you can imagine, just with the travel and the college and everything, like there was a lot going on, and having that mentor really helped me get organized, because until I got her, I just was, anything that I knew I had to do, I was doing it, but I could have been doing it so much better if I really had sat down and organized it the way that she taught me how to. Because before I was just like, okay, I know I have class this time, this time, this time. There would be times where I would go into class and the professor would be like, okay, turn in your homework for this or turn in your assignment for this. And I was like, wait, what assignment? Like, and I was getting my classes mixed up just because of how busy I was. Because not only am I trying to be a student athlete, but then I'm also going on, and practicing, and then practice ends and I decide I want to hit an extra hour after practice. So it's like I was forgetting things and I just had so much going on. So if there's one thing I wish I did sooner, it's definitely get a mentor like ASAP, because that was, once I had the mentor and I had someone to go over stuff with me, I mean, I was good to go. I didn't need the mentor the rest of my entire career. I think I kept her for, I think it was like, I want to say 2 years. So I think it was freshman and sophomore year, maybe a little bit of junior year, but I don't really think it was. I think it was just freshman and sophomore year. And she definitely kept me in line. I mean, there were times where I'm like, I'm tired, I want to go home. And she would sometimes have to be like, no, like you need to get this, at least this paragraph or 2 paragraphs done for your essay. So it was really nice because you almost had like an accountability partner. I already had those in softball, but now it was nice because I had one with with school and academics, someone to just keep me on track, especially when I was traveling. Because you guys, when I was traveling, like me specifically, I'd be traveling and I'd have interviews and stuff on the road with like ESPN and all these things. And I just was like, I was extremely overwhelmed, and I was trying to be, you know, the face of Michigan softball, but also pass my classes and also perform for Michigan softball too. So as you can imagine, my head was everywhere. I felt like it was going to explode. So I got a question on here. So softball was my favorite sport out of all sports. The other sport that I would play would probably be tennis. I really liked tennis. I played tennis for a little while, and I'm not going to lie, I was really good at it, but softball was like what I really loved. Sometimes I'm like, dang, maybe I should have gone to tennis. I could have made millions like Venus and Serena Williams. So, but it's okay. I went with softball. But and then the other question is, what is your biggest piece of advice for when you had to travel while doing school on the road? Biggest piece of advice is get ahead. Obviously they're not gonna give you all your assignments ahead of time. What I mean by getting ahead is the second that I got my syllabus for the entire year from my professors, and the second that I knew my college travel schedule, I would immediately go and compare. I would go look at when my exams were and check to see if I was in town, out of town, whatever, if there was any group projects, anything that I was going to possibly miss that I had to physically be there for. Because when you are traveling, you do get excused. You know, the professor is not allowed to hold it against you. Sometimes there are professors that do. And if that happens, I hope it doesn't. But if it does, the athletic department will handle it because they can't hold it against you that you're leaving early to represent the university. But big thing is getting ahead of it. I would always make sure that within the first week of attending classes, whether it was a new semester or whatever, I made sure I introduced myself to all my professors. I made sure they knew who I was. They knew that I was an athlete, and I never would ask them to, you know, please just be flexible with my schedule. I would just tell them, I will be in at office hours. I will over communicate with you as soon as I have my, you know, my schedule. You know, I'd love to go over it with you. I will let you know as soon as I'm going to be out of town and when I'll be back. Like, I had to really learn how to communicate and let my professors know I'm going to be gone on this day, this day, and this day. It says we have an exam. Is there any chance I can take it sooner? Can I take it early? And if they say no, you would then tell your academic advisor. And while you're traveling on the road, they'll actually send the academic advisor out on the trip with you. And whatever day your exam is, if it's on a Friday or a Saturday, that day I would take the exam, and my academic advisor would sit across from the table and watch me and be the proctor to make sure obviously there's no cheating or anything else. And they would watch me take the exam, and I would have to take it at the same time as the students were back home, unless it was during a game. Then they would work on a different time for me to take it. But they did have academic advisors that would actually come with you on your trip, whether it was to California or Florida. I can't tell you how many times they bought like office space in the hotel, and that would be our like study lounge for study hall hours that we did have on the road. And sometimes the academic advisor would sit there and watch you take your exam, just because you still had to take them even if you were on the road, obviously. So my prep, sorry, I'm telling you that cough. My prep on game days were pretty normal. They always feed you. I'd always look forward to our game day meals. They were always so good. But I would definitely make sure I got myself a good breakfast, or made myself a good breakfast. Sometimes I'd have classes on game days. It just depends. If I had class on game days, you know, I had to kind of roll with it. So I'd go to class. Sometimes I'd have to miss another class if it was too close to game time. But my days had to be pretty normal. But on those days, I just made sure I ate good meals. I drank a lot of water, and I was stretching a lot. And on game days where I had the day to myself, typically I like to sleep in. I want to get my rest, wake up, have some coffee, then hydrate, again, stretch. And then I really like to get to the field early because I like to get physical therapy done before. And so I'd get my arm rubbed out. I'd go sit in the hot tub, and then, you know, get my body warmed, kind of just get into that game day like mood, I guess. If I just sat at home all day, or if I just went and did a bunch of errands, like I'm not going to feel like it's a real game day mood. So what I would do is anything I had to get done, if it was groceries or something, I got it done right when I got up and I was like awake and good. And then I don't even know, probably like 5 hours before the game, I would go to the field and I would just hang out at the field, wait for other athletes to get in. Some of them didn't have class, or they did, or they'd come in at different times. We'd listen to music. We'd be on our phones, we'd just be hanging out, or we'd go upstairs, watch something on TV. There might be film going on, so you'd watch film. Like I said, they supplied us with great lunches and dinners. So we would eat as a team and maybe talk to coaches about the game plan. And it was always really cool because you would look out the window and you see all the fans start coming in, and they always had music playing, and it was really cool. Like I'll never forget like the way that, it's so weird, the way the dirt smelled at Michigan. I swear it smells like different. I don't know what it is, but I just remember like that vividly, that dirt smell in my head and the music blasting on the scoreboard, and all the people working concessions and everything else, setting up, saying hi to you as you walked up, and went into the locker room to get ready to prep for the game and wishing you good luck and everything else. And so it was really exciting and a lot of fun. Did you have any struggles or big blocks in your career? Honestly, at Michigan, I did not. I was really fortunate to have a pretty smooth career as far as injury goes. I had a couple arm issues, but nothing I wasn't able to play through. I had a couple cortisone shots to like let me get through the year, and then I would really rehab it. I ended up not needing surgery, just a lot of rehab. And then as far as like any mental blocks or slumps, I don't believe in slumps. So I didn't have any slumps. There were times where I struggled a little bit, but I never let myself struggle for long. And what I mean by that is if I wasn't performing well or how I wanted to, I immediately put myself back into the cage. And I immediately went back to the simple drills and the things I needed to do that would help me be more consistent and get that going. And so for me, I never had really long blocks when it came to not hitting or not hitting well. I made sure that I was putting in my time in the cage. That way it would then reflect onto the field. So I definitely would say if you're ever not feeling good, sometimes the worst thing you could do is just keep doing the same thing. Not sometimes, all the time. That's the worst thing you do is keep doing the same thing over and over again. Something has to change. I'd be lying if I said sometimes I'd even give myself like a couple of days off from hitting and be like, okay, I'm not hitting a lot today. Just because sometimes when things aren't feeling that great, sometimes you're just tired and you're fatigued and you just need to recover and rest. And I think coaches are really good about that too, especially because of how long season is and just practices and everything else. Routine every time I step into the box. The only routine I typically do is I'll take my bat and I touch it to the river and towards the left-hand batter's box, just to make sure that where I'm standing is a good spot. I'm not too much on the plate or not too far off, and I can still cover that outside corner. But that's really my only routine when I step into the box. My thought process, though, when I step into the box is anything close, I'm swinging. I've seen people, and myself included, I've hit balls out that are up at my head, down at my shin. I've seen people hit a ball off a wall that literally bounced. Jesse Warren did that one year. It literally bounced and she hit it off the wall of the World Series. Like it does not need to be a perfect pitch for you to get a hit or hit it well. You just have to be 100% going for it. Your mind has to be made like, I'm swinging anything close, I'm swinging hard. So my thought process is always that I'm going after anything close. Now, depending on the kind of pitcher I'm facing, if she's really good, I may need to pick a side of the plate, then like I will. But for the most part, I'm thinking swing hard at anything close. And if I'm swinging 100%. I'm not swinging 75, 50. Like if I'm going for it, I'm going all out. Let's see. My first home run was in high school. My first home run over the fence was my freshman year of high school. Oh man, my game playlist. So I'm actually typically always DJ. So if that tells you anything about my game day playlist, just know that I'm typically the DJ wherever I'm at. I love me some good music. I have a ton of playlists. I've created so many playlists. It's insane. I love music. I will sometimes get stuck on Apple Music just searching new stuff, or Spotify searching new things all the time. Now with social media, so many people post songs all the time. That's how I find so many new songs, just because somebody will post something and then I go look it up to see if I like it or not. But I'm definitely the music. I'm the music girl. Anytime they need a DJ, it's always Romo. Let's see. Oh, I guess I didn't answer the question of what's the playlist. I have a game day playlist, but I'm not telling you what's on it. It's a little bit of everything. It's a lot of pump up music, but it's called Go Crazy. That's what the playlist is called. Let's see, what is it? Ooh, that's a good question. What is something you wish you were more prepared for in terms of softball going into college? I would say the one thing I wished I was more prepared when it comes to softball is probably recovery. I know I spoke on it like briefly at the beginning of this talk, but now having gone through a knee surgery in my pro career, I never had a knee surgery or anything like that when I was in college. It happened after the fact when I was playing pro. My recovery with my knee surgery was a really big deal because I had a lot of issues with my knee. I didn't heal properly the first time. So I actually had to have I think it was three knee surgeries. And I was in physical therapy for a while, which is why this season of me playing is a big deal, because it'll technically be the first season back fully since my knee injury 2 years ago. But I had so many surgeries that my recovery kept getting pushed back. I would go 6 months of recovering and then I need another surgery. And then I'd go, 5 more months or 6 more months again, need another surgery. And then I'd go another 5 months and need another surgery. And now here we are. I'm finally a few years removed and I haven't been able to play a season again yet because of how many surgeries I had to have in the recovery process and how long the recovery took. So I would definitely say though, when I was in college, I did not know how to properly take care of my body or listen to my body. And with how much you're training and and practicing, you have to get used to that. I get on my younger siblings all the time. Anytime their arm is hurting, or, my sister Sophia, she had a hip thing, her hip was bothering her, whatever. And she was training and everything else. And I'm like, well, Pia, what are you doing for your recovery? Are you stretching? Are you lifting and making that area of your hip stronger? Because maybe it's weak. That's probably why it's hurting. And she's like, no. She's like, I'm young. I'm fine. And I'm like, no, you're not. It's going to catch up to you. You need to stay on it now. And so I have those talks with them all the time, both her and my brother. But I would definitely say that recovery is the one thing I wish I took more seriously going into college, just because then I would have been more prepared on how to listen to my body and basically make sure that I was able to perform 100% every time, instead of, not taking care of myself. And now I only have 50% at practice when I should have 100%, but I didn't recover correctly. So therefore I don't have as much to give. So I definitely think the recovery is huge. In your softball career, did you ever feel like quitting? No. Well, no, that's a lie. The one time I ever felt like quitting was during my knee surgery. I was so tired of having surgeries and I was in pain basically every day. My knee surgery, my knee injury was by far the hardest thing I've had to recover from, physically with softball, but then also mentally and emotionally, not being able to walk properly for over a year without any pain. I couldn't even jog. I couldn't do anything. Every time I walked, I had a limp. I had to relearn how to walk because I started to walk incorrectly. I wasn't able to just do a simple heel toe. I was very flat footed, which then resulted in my back hurting, my hip hurting, all these things being off. And then I had to fix all these other things, all because of my knee. So I would definitely say that during my knee surgeries, I definitely contemplated retiring and being done, because I was like, I don't think I'll be able to come back from this. which is another reason why I'm really excited for this season, because I did not think that I was going to play softball ever again after I tore my ACL. So I definitely think that that's probably why it's like super exciting for me this season. I majored in English and sociology at the University of Michigan. Favorite warm-up song? Oh man. One of them is probably Icon. Who's that by? Something Smith. I just really like it. Really hypes me up. It's called Icon. When did I first realize I was good at softball? Probably at a young age, like probably in travel ball. I'm very competitive. I was even more competitive when I was younger. And if I thought somebody else was better than me, that like would really piss me off. And so I would just train. And I would like constantly, like I'd be at practice, and, sometimes they have the second baseman or shortstop like mix and go together. And if I didn't feel like I was the best at the end of practice, like it really made me angry. And so I would go home and train some more. But travel ball is definitely when I realized that I was an above average player, and that I could be really good at this if I wanted to be, and if I wanted to keep putting the work in. But definitely travel ball. I don't know what year exactly, but when I was young, definitely when I was young, because that was when I really started to take it seriously. And I knew what my goal was. And my goal was to get to college with it and have it take me to college and have it paid for, and my parents not to have to pay anything. And so when I made that my goal, and I didn't want my parents to come out of pocket financially, there was just nothing that was going to stop me. And so because of that mindset, I ended up being one of the top athletes. And I definitely knew it. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that you should give yourself that pat on the back. And I think that us women athletes specifically don't always have to be so modest all the time. Like it's okay to know you're good. It's okay to have that swagger and know what you deserve. Favorite training drill? Extension. When we have the camp, the first weekend of March, I guarantee you we will have one, maybe two extension drills. I don't care how many times. If I were to come back to you guys and work with you 50 more times after this, we will always do extension. Extension is extremely important, that I believe in hitting. And it's a drill that I have never stopped doing, and I will always do as long as I'm playing softball. And so I think that if it's a drill that I do and I truly believe in, and it's one that constantly helps me get my swing back to where I want it to be, especially after I take time off, I think that it's a drill that you guys all could benefit from. Favorite memory while playing at Michigan was probably favorite two was one, playing against my sister at the World Series, even though we lost. Playing against her at the World Series was awesome, but also making it to the championship game against Florida at the World Series. That was really cool. So when it comes to emailing coaches, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I had a very different recruiting process. So I actually didn't send emails. They had all been approaching me. However, my younger sister, she has sent emails. But remember, if you are not past September 1st of your junior year, they will not and cannot respond to you. If they respond to you, they can get in trouble. So if you're frustrated because they're not responding to you, unless you are a junior in high school and it's past September 1st, they can't respond to you. But if you are a junior and it's past September 1st, it's going to be frustrating. They get a lot of emails all the time. I coached a year at the University of Oregon, and I saw firsthand how many emails they get nonstop. And also I saw everything else that they have going on. And so just know that you're going to have to really be on it with your emails. You may have to send the same coach, multiple emails, the same email over and over again, or maybe you're going to send one to the hitting coach this time. Try to be patient, but don't get discouraged if they don't reach out right away. Okay. Let your game speak for itself. Yes. Send the emails, do all that stuff you have to do, but also make sure you're putting in the work, because the emails aren't what's going to get you recruited right away. It's going to be those skills and the effort that you put in. So I did coach collegiately for a year at the University of Oregon. I loved it. I was good at it. I could definitely see myself coaching professionally. What's tough is I just don't know that I want that lifestyle. I'm still trying to figure out what kind of lifestyle I want to have after playing professional softball. And I do know that the college coaching lifestyle doesn't leave much room for anything else other than coaching 24/7. So I have to decide if that's what I want or not. I know that I could be good at it. I know that. It's just my my lifestyle and home life are also very important to me. My experience at Oregon was awesome. It was a tough year, the year that I was there, because we had a ton of stuff going on because the transfer portal had just come into play. But it was a lot of fun. I got to learn a lot about myself as a coach, which is completely different than me, the athlete. So it was really cool to get to know that side of me. I wouldn't say I ever had a bad coach, but I definitely had a coach that I disagreed with. You don't have to agree on everything with them. However, it is important for you to be coachable. And I think it's important for a coach to also be open-minded and not try to just get everybody to look the same with mechanics, because I think that certain things work for some people and not others. And sometimes the coach has to be willing to work with that. And I would definitely say just be open to having conversations. If you're not liking something or agreeing on something, or something feels weird in your swing that you're trying that's new, but it's not clicking, you got to be able to be like, hey coach, I don't really like this new stance. Can we change it up a little bit more? And I think having that open conversation is huge, because the coach should be willing to say yeah, let's try this and see if this works for you. But if you're not comfortable with something, you, the athlete, have to get to a point where you're comfortable having a hard conversation. I had that talk with my younger sister. She wasn't really playing much on this one team she was on. And I'm like, well, why do you think? And she's like, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm working really hard. I'm doing all the extra work and I'm getting the results on the field. I don't know what's missing. And I'm like, well, have you talked to your coach? She's like, well, no. And I'm like, well, then you need to talk to your coach. And she's like, well, can mom and dad? And I'm like, no, mom and dad aren't playing. You have to go talk to them. So she went and she called him and they spoke, and he was like, you know what, we need more of a power hitter in this situation. And she was like, coach, I'm more than happy to swing more. And little did you know, it was just miscommunication. He thought that all she wanted to do was really slap and play the small ball game. And she was like, no, I'm ready to hit. I'll be the power hitter. So he just wasn't aware that that was something she was comfortable doing and that she could really do well, because she was just always slapping and playing the small ball game. And so once they got that fixed, and then he saw her hit and she started swinging away more in games. He was like, oh, wow, I didn't know you had this. And so sometimes it's just opening up that line of communication. What keeps me going? I think it changes. I think one thing that keeps me going is I genuinely love softball. But also I know that I can make a difference and I can make change. And I know that I have already. But I really I want to keep pushing for more. Right now, for example, I'm in the process of redoing a few of my contracts. And, I'm not going to lie, with some of my contracts, they're either trying to take, not some, just really one, they're trying to take money away, or they're trying to take, and I'm like, this is my livelihood. This is what I do for a living. And, how do you expect us to operate as a professional athlete if we already don't get paid much, but you're trying to take more money away? And so really just sticking up for the female athlete. And I'm about to not re-sign with one of my sponsors just because, they want to play that game. Then it's just, I have to stick up for the female athlete and what we deserve, but also what I deserve. And we don't deserve to be lowballed. And so if the company wants to do that, then I'll just have to walk away from it. And I have to be okay with that. And I think that the more that us female athletes stick up for ourselves and our ability and what we expect, the more that they'll get the hint, and that these companies will figure it out and truly truly invest in softball. You know that they do collegiately, but they haven't quite yet fully professionally. Let's see, I'm answering a few more questions. One coach that really helped reach where I am now is Mark Campbell. He passed away a couple years ago, but he was my first travel ball coach that like just, he scared me, but in a good way. He was tough on me. He sometimes had a few choice of words for us and the girls, but like, I mean, he made us talk about physically, mentally tough. You know, he made us really all click and expect the best from ourselves and work our butts off. Let's see what else. When I was drafted for the Pride, it was awesome. I actually knew that I was getting drafted to the Pride just because I had been in talks with a first round pick team and I didn't want to play for them. And so I had told them that I wanted to go with the Pride. And so I was able to actually pass on the first round pick and go with the Pride instead. Was mental health something your coaches paid attention to? If I'm being honest, no. Mental health has not been something that was talked about for me as an athlete until the past 3 years, which was when my knee injury happened. But it is something that is extremely important and something that needs to be talked about and paid attention to, especially now with social media. I think that social media makes it much worse. And so just not getting hooked on this is what I need to play like or look like or everything else, like that's just so not the case. But I know that social media does that. But then so do like injuries, right? My injury caused me to have just a totally different look on mental health and having to figure out who I was and who I am. But I definitely think it's something that needs to be more of a conversation. But I do know that now in college it is. I know that there's mental health coaches that work with the girls. There are therapists that the girls will go to talk to. I know for a fact that it is something that is talked about heavily in college, in sports in general for student athletes, because they go through a lot and sometimes they need help balancing it all and figuring it all out mentally because it's hard to deal with sometimes. So I do know that there are resources, but I do think it's a conversation that needs to happen. It is important to happen. It just wasn't really something talked about much when I was growing up. Last question. What are some of your favorite team building, team bonding activities that you've done? Honestly, some of my favorites are just something as simple as team dinners. I mean, all the way down to like when I was in high school, we did team dinners at different people's houses. I just think, so growing up, my family always ate together. So like anytime I'm here at the house and I'm eating, it's like I want it to be a together thing. We sometimes, like if we're watching a movie, a show or something, like we might be down on the couch, whatever, but for the most part, we set the table, we ate at the table together, we talked, we had conversation. And then once dinner was done, you went back to doing what you were doing, or we typically watched a movie. And so for me, dinner is always like a time to talk and be with people and enjoy their company. So I really enjoy that type of team bonding. And those were typically my favorites. Anytime Hutch had us over for dinner, or sometimes we'd have dinner at, my house with my roommates or somebody else's house, or we'd all just go out to eat. My freshman year, all the freshmen would eat pretty much together every night in the cafeteria. So those were always like my favorite team bondings, because you just would laugh about stuff, talk about your day, and communicate. And so I think that's something that's really important, especially now, just like I said, with social media. Sometimes we get so stuck on our phone, we don't look up and have a conversation with the person. So I definitely think that any type of team dinner or stuff like that is probably my favorite.
Hey, Sierra.
All right.
Hi.
Yeah.
I know you've been going nonstop, so we really appreciate your time and sharing your experience with us. I just wanted to ask real quick: is there anybody that wasn't able to do the chat, or were having difficulty with the chat, that just wanted to ask a quick question verbally? Okay. Just wanted to give everybody an opportunity if you were having a problem. But I love your swing. That was one of the, the biggest things watching your videos, especially, your home run hitting. And that I think there was like a short video called like 13 home runs in 60 seconds
Uh-huh.
that you did. And
Yeah.
yeah. So I know we've watched that with my girls and so on, but
That's awesome. You just reminded me of that video, so maybe I need to remake it. That'd be a good one. It's been a little while since I've done that. That was like, I remember that video. It was like a home run derby we did.
yeah, and yeah, it was impressive for sure. But I guess we're gonna go ahead and let you go, because I know that you have training tomorrow and you're getting ready for your season that's coming up. And again, we really appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to seeing you here and at the beginning of March for a clinic.
Thank you. I'm excited to work with you all. I'm excited to see you. It'll be a good clinic and we'll get after it. So thank you guys for joining me.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Have
good
a good
night.
night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sierra.